For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dallas Jones. I am Vice President at Ecosense. And while our company headquarters is in San Jose, California, I'm talking to you tonight from beautiful Atlanta, Georgia. And our very special guest tonight is Jesse Green from American Radon Mitigation. And Jesse is in the Twin Cities area. I don't know exactly what burb you're in. But
we're about 45 minutes north of the Twin Cities.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
But Jesse is just a premier radon mitigation contractor, but he's also, and I can say this with, I think with out of affection. Jesse is kind of a nerd when it comes to radon. He really gets it because he's constantly looking at things, and I think Jesse's one of the best examples of a mitigator who uses data, collects data, and uses it to his advantage to help him, I imagine, not only bid on jobs, but design mitigation systems, troubleshoot issues, and make sure that he's giving the best possible system to his clients. So I'm really, really happy to have Jesse with us. So go ahead, Jesse. Take a minute and tell everybody about yourself, and we'll move into this.
Well, thank you for the introduction, but I'm not as clever as you might think, Dallas. I just got a lot of people that have shared a lot of their information with me, so I'm grateful for those guys. But yeah, we got into radon mitigation back in 2014. My dad and I got into it together, did it together for about a year, and we were doing the real estate transactions like most companies probably do, or at least when they start out.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't making any money, so my dad got out of it. I stuck with it, and here we are 9 years later. And we've learned a lot since then, and have come a long way since then. So we're always trying to get better.
Well, that's interesting, because what you're telling me, it sounds is that you quit trying to chase after just the mitigations that were associated with the real estate transaction, and have instead built a solid business on homeowners who just genuinely want to test and mitigate their homes out of concern for their health, as opposed to the motivation of the home inspector perhaps telling them, well, it's important that you test.
Yeah, I mean, we do a fair amount for people that are buying the house or recently bought the house. Back with the real estate market being as hot as it was last year, I think a lot of people were waiving their inspection, or maybe they weren't putting in their having the seller take care of it when they did a test and it came back high. So we've had, some people that, hey, I just bought the house and we want to get this taken care of now.
Yeah.
But primarily a lot of them are just a regular homeowner that's tested.
Well, I'm going to go through a couple of things here, and then I'm going to really let Jesse talk, and because he's got a lot of experience using our products, and that I think would benefit those of you who taken the time to be on the call. But before we do that, I do want to share with you why I am with Ecosense. I retired at the end of June this past year from executive director at Arston NRPP, and I had been looking at Ecosense for a while. Actually, I was looking at this sensor before Ecosense was the company that was that was marketing it. This particular sensor, the first time I saw it was actually in Minnesota in 2015, when the people from FT Lab, which is a company in Korea who invented this sensor, came to the ARST conference, and that was where I got to meet Dr. Ko, who was one of the inventors. And I actually picked up the original radon eye he had at his booth, and and looked at it, and then read the information on it, and I saw that 30 counts per hour per picocurie per liter, and quite frankly, it didn't register, because that would be the farthest thing from my mind, from a little device that he had already told me, he wasn't selling for a lot of money, or didn't think he would be. They were still trying to figure out how they were going to market it. And I actually took 2 steps away and then turned on my heels and said, "Hey, is this right?" And he said, "Yeah." And I went, "Wow, that's about 8 to 12 times more efficient than the 2 companies over here that sell professional radon monitors all the time." And he said, "Yeah, I know." And having experience in radon detection technology from previous businesses that I've been a part of, I just had to spend some time with him. And I have to admit that I before I went to work for Arst, I had a couple of conversations with Dr. Coe and said, "Hey, if you really need somebody to help sell these in the United States, talk to me." As it turned out, I got an offer to work for the association, and after thinking about it, I went ahead and did that. And in the meantime, a fellow by the name of Insoo Park, who is the CEO of Ecosense, met Dr. Coe through a mutual friend, and Insoo learned about what they were doing with this sensor and their radon detection technology. And as it turned out, Insoo, who had started some companies and sold them off, they were out of Silicon Valley and had done well in the microchip business, decided that this sort of appealed to him, because he had a friend that had passed from lung cancer who had never smoked. And so he had a personal reason why he wanted to get into this business. So he did his research, and in 2019, Ecosense was created, and FT Lab, the company that in Korea that manufactured and invented this technology, became the second largest shareholder in the company. And so now we work together. But that's kind of the story behind it. And so when I thought about kind of what I was going to do in retirement, I said, "Yeah, I want to talk to them." And so as a result, I ended up investing in the company. And after some more conversations, I just rolled up my sleeves and went back to work. So here I am, having some fun with technology that I'm really proud to be a part of. 30 counts per hour per picocurie per liter, without getting into a lot of detail, just means that you can really have confidence in the hourly readings that you get with on your reports, whereas a lot of the other common professional units out there that provide an hourly number, the error is rather large on the hourly readings, and so they look choppy, and they don't really give you the ability to see the trends because they can't respond fast enough. They just don't collect enough data in an hour's time to have much confidence in the numbers. So that's the sensor. And so the Radon Eye, which we still sell, is a consumer device. We then created the Radon Eye Pro, which uses the same sensor technology, but has all the other bells and whistles, along with the software capability to create a professional report and a dashboard to to keep up with your reports and your templates, and personalize them, and for your company and so forth. So we have a whole lineup of products here, and some of them are professionals, like the Radon Eye Pro. What we're going to talk about tonight primarily is the Eco Tracker, and I'll get to that a little more, and then I'm going to let Jesse talk, I promise. And then we also have an Eco Cube, which is the one here in the sort of in the middle, which is we sell a lot on Amazon as well as on our website, and it has the same 30 count per hour per picocurie per liter sensor. It's very affordable for homeowners. You connect it to your Wi-Fi, and then you can see everything that's going on, including all the hourly data and your averages for the day, the week, the month, and the year, right on your smartphone. So that's become one of our biggest sellers. And then over on the far left, we have a newer product, which is the Eco Blue. And I didn't believe it when they first started talking about it, that there were people who just didn't want to be on the internet. But as I learned more, I was told that, well, there are people that just didn't want to get that Eco Cube because it means they had to connect to Wi-Fi and use Bluetooth to track their results. And some people are just either intimidated or maybe they're a little paranoid, but nevertheless, there are folks that just prefer to just see it on a display. So the one on the left here actually has a button on the back that you can display the current concentration, and then you can toggle and get the day average, the week average, the month average, and the annual average. So we've got a little something for everybody. But again, it's those hourly readings that enable our technology to track so well to changing radon concentrations. This is a comparison between our sensor and an Alpha Guard. And an Alpha Guard is about $10,000. It's a device that you're not going to use to do professional tests with. It's a device that they use to intercompare radon chambers with, for example, and use for research and other things. So we're really proud of the performance, and we've got a lot of independent verification on how well our sensor does, even compared with such an expensive and even more efficient sensor. So our topic tonight really is the Eco Tracker, and I'll share with you, it was folks like Bill Broadhead and Jesse. I'll have to say, I don't know if you were in on that conversation that happened before I came to work with Ecosense, but there were a couple of very prominent mitigators who came to Insoo Park, our CEO, and said, hey, the radon eye has such a good counting efficiency that it can collect reliable data in a short time. Could you make it where we could get results in 5-minute intervals or 10-minute intervals, and package it together in maybe a set of 4, where we could place them out in different locations around the foundation, and be able to use our smartphone to look at the data from 4 units, from one app, and compare one spot to the next, look for hot spots, to help you design the system and whatnot. So that's exactly how this device came about. And so it does give you the ability to read at 5-minute intervals, 10-minute intervals, or you can switch it over to 1-hour readings if you want to do that. And after you figured out what you're going to do with the system, you could use it to monitor your worker exposure or whatnot. So that's the main topic for tonight. And I just want Jesse to if you would, to share kind of how you use this and what it means to your business.
Okay. Well, we recently released that video where these came in handy at a customer's house that we worked on. So I don't know if any of you had a chance to watch that, but we did post on our YouTube channel this morning, I think. So if you didn't get a chance to take a look at it, feel free to take a look at it and make more sense what I'm talking about. But yeah, basically, like, I use them all the time. I use them on bids, not on every bid, but maybe half of them. So it's nice to know. Just last week, or sorry, not last week, 2 weeks ago, I was bidding a job and they had a 4-level split. So we had the basement and then the kind of the grade level. I think it was slab on grade, or not a slab on grade, but at grade level, had a crawl space below that, which is a dirt floor. And all the other people that went in to bid the job quoted them for crawl space encapsulation, as well as creating suction down in the lowest part of the basement. And I said, man, we might not have to encapsulate that crawl space to drop the radon. And sure enough, the basement tested at like 4, that crawl space tested at like 1.5, and then the room above the crawl space was, I think, 2. So we haven't done the job. We didn't get the job, at least not yet. But just that tells me right there that that crawl space might not be a major source of the radon, because it's under less negative pressure than the basement is, or the house is creating less suction on the soil there than it is in the lowest part of the basement. But back at that video, we installed that system in September of last year, and the house is kind of under construction. But I said to the homeowners, like, hey, we're not really reaching these 2 test holes, but your radon's low. The next day when I came back, I told them that. So we can add these, or you can kind of roll the dice and see how it comes back. So 7 months later, they had tested and it came back high. I think it was 3.8 and 2.8 or something. But so I went back and added suction for 2 more suction points, and then went back the next day to film that video and clean up. But the radon hadn't really dropped a whole lot. So I used after some more head scratching, my girlfriend was there with me, and she's like, well, clearly what we're doing now isn't working. We're just sealing and sealing and sealing. I was like, I got to get out of here. We got to go, because I had somewhere to be that night. But she helped me just kind of zoom out, which I could get down in the weeds and stuck on something. And she's like, well, that spot's the highest under the steps. Like, what do you think's causing that? And I was like, well, it could be that front step. So we ended up mitigating that front step, and then the radon dropped, and it's now 0.5. So it's useful for stuff like that rather than just bang your head against the wall.
Yeah, I hear a lot of stories where, particularly when you have a house or any building that's has any complexity to it at all, that sometimes even in simple houses are head scratchers. That if you can have a way to get data from different locations around the foundation, it can do wonders in helping you pinpoint what to focus on. It also, what I hear over and over again, it can save you callbacks. If you're getting that information, while you're there at the site. I mean, you can put these out, and even while you're still unpacking tools from your truck, you can already be collecting data at 5 or 10 minute intervals, and by the time you kind of get ready to look around and say, oh, okay, well, where am I going to begin here? You've got some data from multiple spots that can may shape your approach. I would imagine by just having access to that, and being able to then design with that in mind, can certainly save you from packing up tools and putting in a post mitigation test and then finding out after the fact, now I've got to go back out there again. And if you're a contractor, then that every time you have to put a crew or yourself or whoever back out on the job again, that costs you money just right there. So anything to help you with that. I've heard you tell some other stories where eco trackers have helped you find problems, and got any others you want to share?
Yeah, so a friend of mine owns a mitigation company, and he'd been working on this house for a year. He's still working on it, where he goes back every couple weeks or every couple months and tries something new. And Josh from the Department of Health went out, and I finally convinced him, like, hey, reach out to Josh, he's gonna help you. So he finally worked up the courage to ask Josh for some help, which Josh can be kind of intimidating, was to me at least at first. But he means well, and he's super smart. So Josh kind of helped him kind of figure out the PFE side of things and figure out where they were reaching, where they weren't. And then they put in a temporary system, and it seemed to work. he had a test set up for, I think, 10 days. He does 2 CRMs for like 10 days. Each time he does something and it seemed to work, it got him where he got it his levels to where he and the homeowner were happy. And then I didn't have much going on one day. So I'm like, hey, let's go look at that job. And we made this temporary system a permanent system. And I had the eco trackers with me. And while I was there with him, I put one in the garage, and the garage was testing at 7. And I think the basement was like 3 or 4 or something when we were there. So he didn't have pressure field extension. And it was like, man, this is what I would do if you want to get it as low as possible. You know, you got to get PFE in these places and probably do something with that garage. So it is just, it's crazy for me to think like working on a job for a year and just guessing like how much time and how disheartened he got from having to go back so many times. And I just feel so bad for him. Like, hey, let's just spend 2 days here and get it done. You don't have to go back. But just the you know, spending half a day there scattering the eco trackers around, seeing where the radon was high, where it wasn't, in combination with doing the pressure field extension testing, like that can eliminate so many of those callbacks, especially, you know, it might not cost them a lot of money to go back, but it sure costs them a lot of time and probably frustration with the homeowner.
Sure.
So he bought eco trackers, I think a week or 2 ago after I was out there. I think he finally just saw the value of having those quick measurements rather than, yep, I'm going to reset my monitors, go back 10 days later and see what they are, where the eco trackers a lot of times, you know, if I'm not in a super tight house and I turn that system on, you know, a few hours after that, the radon levels have dropped off pretty substantially. And we have pretty good confidence knowing it's going to work before we even leave. You know, a lot of times they're below 1.
Yeah. Well, the garage thing, was this garage one that was sort of up above the below grade basement wall, the garage slab?
Yep. So it was a full basement,
Yeah.
with an addition. That addition has drain tile, both interior and exterior. And yes, the garage slab is up here compared to the basement floor.
Right.
But with that addition, the drain tile, he had part of it sewer cambered by a plumber months ago, and they'd only sewer cambered one part of it. So I grabbed my sewer camera, and we could see that drain tile went up, then went down, and wherever it went down, it was full of water. So he wasn't getting any airflow through there. It was clay; it didn't have any rock or anything around it. And then he was probably losing some air to outside because it went up to 4 window wells, which did have coffee cans over them. So probably not a ton of air lost there, but we got a lot going on in that house. And just being able to test along with doing pressure field extension, hopefully we'll get him a win on it sooner than later, hopefully.
You know, I sometimes hear mitigators who for example, just think that they you know, they don't really need to do the diagnostics. And if you're working on very typical houses all the time, and the houses are constructed pretty much the same way in the area you work, and you know, you can probably get away with that without a lot of problems for a while. But the other thing is, I wonder just how well those systems work when you're just poking and hoping, and you do a short, you know, 2-day test afterwards. You know, how they hold up. You know, without, you know, pressure field extension measurements and the ability to get some diagnostic radon data around.
Even like, so that house in the video we did today, you know, my eco tracker showed low the next day. I was like, hey, we don't have PFE in those 2 test holes, but the radon's low. What do you guys want to do? And now I know, hey, if we don't have PFE in those test holes, what could happen in the winter? Granted, the front step was a kind of an X factor in that case too. But I'd imagine as it gets warmer, the radon levels will be low again in the summer had we not mitigated that front step, just because there's not as much of a stack effect.
Yeah.
Pulling radon through that rim joist.
Yeah, which is another reason why at Ecosense we really do like to have our professional customers promote, using the Eco Cubes and providing those to their clients, or the Eco Blues, where they can test beyond just that initial 2-day test after the system is installed, because the intent obviously is to make sure that system can work all year round and do the job, and the only way to really verify that is to have the ability to constantly monitor. And it's become so affordable now because of the technology we have, that it just makes good sense. So I had Merritt Gant, maybe a couple of you attended that webinar, on with me a few months ago, and Garrett actually has a mitigation business in the Greenville, South Carolina area, and that area is kind of rolling hills, so there are a lot of houses with walkout basements, but he told me that he's just gotten where he sets up his eco trackers on his jobs, and he just always tests that garage. He just got bit too many times, where that garage was the source of a problem, that he was getting good pressure field extension across the basement slab, but he was getting a lot of radon entry in that, from what was coming in from below that garage slab and into the basement through that wall. So rather than well, I don't want to look at that and I'll hope it all works and then find out after the fact. He just finds out up front.
Yeah, that's interesting. In 9 years, I've never had to mitigate a garage to drop the radon. And this friend of mine says he's run into it a handful of times now, where he's thinking about it all the time. And I know Merritt runs into it, and I think there's a guy in Wisconsin that runs into it pretty frequently, but it's crazy how different it can be.
Yeah,
we're all
different
within
locations.
a couple
Well,
hours of each other here.
It's been many years because I'm old, but back in the early and mid 90s, when I actually did some mitigation work in the Atlanta area, we too have rolling hills and a lot of those walkout basements with the garage slab up above that below grade wall, and quite frankly, we just adopted a policy that we were going to tap in and a point through that wall, and we didn't have the advantage of having a eco tracker to help us determine whether that was necessary or not, but we just decided it wasn't worth having to come back, so we put a point through that and depressurize that soil underneath the garage slab, just as a typical mitigation. And as the years progressed and we got more competition in the area, mitigators would not do that, and we often ended up going back and having to fix systems because that was the problem. But being able to diagnose that up front, I've had a number of folks tell me also that and it sounds like you've had that experience too, which is why you're using them on bids. You go out and you do a bid and you place those out, for the 45 minutes to an hour or whatever while you're there. Maybe they're longer, but a lot of people are so impressed that you're collecting data as part of your proposal process that they decide, well, even if you do charge more than the other bid they got, that they'd rather have you do the work. Have you had that experience?
I guess nothing comes to mind for that. It does. I did have a job I did last week for a past customer that bought a new house, and their passive system, they had a passive system in it. Their radon was like 3, and sometimes I kind of talk myself out of a job too, where it's like, hey, what is it above the garage? Because they had a bonus room. She's like, oh, I don't know. It's like, oh, I got this. Let's check it out. And the radon in the entire house is like 0.8 on all 4 eco trackers. So had I not tested, maybe they would have moved forward. It'll probably be high in the winter as well. But I knew going into it, like, okay, hey, the garage probably isn't a factor. I did put it in the garage too, and everything was low. But yeah, sometimes it can bite you when you do testing on the
Well,
job too, because it tests low, and then they think, oh, it's low, and it's like, wait, this isn't like an official,
yeah.
radon test. But yeah.
Yeah, in Minnesota, and I don't know if there's anybody in the call, I'll get some questions here in just a minute, but they require that you test every foundation location. So in other words, if you have a basement, then you need to test in the basement. If you have an adjacent crawl space, then you need to test a room above that crawl space. And if there happened to be a slab addition somewhere, then you would test a room above that slab. So if you had that situation, you'd actually be placing three tests as part of the pre-mitigation, mitigation radon test. And there were critics when they first did that about whether that was just unnecessary. Do you really need to do that? If you tested it in the basement, wouldn't that be sufficient? And Pat Daniels, who's is about to retire, but the program director there for years, has given a number of presentations over the years of the data from the test locations in the different spots in those kinds of houses. And not only did they discover that it's not uncommon for the basement to be below 4, but the room above the adjacent crawl space is above 4 by more than just a few tenths of a picocurie, by significant amount, or maybe the room above the slab addition. So he's had enough data that he was able to really provide evidence that this is important. So if you're going to mitigate based on perhaps a test that was done only in one location, and you're assuming, well, maybe I don't need to worry about that room above the crawl and the crawl area, or maybe you want to, like you were describing, you want to know whether you need to. Then having the ability to do the diagnostics is important. So let me go through a couple of things here. I do want to be conscious of everybody's time. So let's see if I can. I think everybody got how these work. Very, very quickly, I do want to, and I'll bring this back again. If you're interested in getting an eco tracker, for being on the webinar with me tonight, if you use and it's a set of 4. If you use that code Dallas ET, I keep wanting to put my finger out when I read that, but that was the one Ksenia gave me, was Dallas ET. Then you'll get $120 off, and you've got until Sunday night at midnight Pacific time to take advantage of that. That's a great deal. You get 40 units, you get the carrying case and everything you need. So they want to take advantage of that. I quickly want to go through a couple of things. We've got, by the way, we're coming out with a new Radon Eye Pro report, which, if I thought I had that here, maybe I don't. Well, I guess I don't. We're coming out with a new Radon Eye report. It's been fully compliant with the NCR standards for quite a while, but we've kind of rearranged it to make it even more easy to read for your client. So that should be out along with some other improvements to the dashboard and things. So we're constantly trying to listen to our customers and make improvements. So I wanted to let, if you are using a Radon Eye Pro, that those are coming. I think you'll really like the new report format. It very boldly has the information you need on the very front page. I do want to just mention here before I get to these questions that if you're a radon tester and a home inspector, and you're out doing, for example, tests for real estate transactions, and they come back in that 2 to 4 range, the recommendation that'll be on your test report as required says that it's you should consider mitigation if it's between 2 and 4. And a lot of times people take that and figure, well, okay, it was less than 4, so I'll move on, and they forget about radon, until they buy another house or for the rest of their lives. And we certainly have enough experience since we've been selling these to know that radon changes a lot. Maybe the mitigation or maybe you didn't install a mitigation system and it looked good at the time, but over the course of of the year, you start to see that your radon concentrations are not quite what you thought from that 2-day test that was done during the home purchase. So we have a referral club. We'd certainly invite all of you to be part of the referral club. If you go to our website, you can sign up if you're not a part of it. Your customers will get a 5% off one of these devices, or any of our devices actually, or the lowest price on Amazon if we're having a sale. And then you'll make a 10% commission, and we pay those out every month, PayPal. And you'll have a little dashboard that keeps track of the units, and you can put this on your website, and people can go in and purchase from you, and you can make a little extra cash, but you can also be a real value to your customers, particularly for those that fall in that 2 to 4 range. Say, hey, you probably want to get one of these where you can track your radon for a longer period, because even though I did a great test, it was only for 2 or 3 days, and so here's a way where you could very affordably do this for continuously. The other thing is if it's a real estate transaction and you're going to be giving a test result to that client that shows the home's in need of mitigation, and they're going to call the mitigator to come mitigate in order to close the deal. Then it's, as you know, the seller may not make the best choice in who they hire as a mitigator. They're looking usually for the lowest price all too often. And so you want to tell your client this is even more important, to have you come back and do the post mitigation clearance test. And you can also look over the system and make sure that there are no safety issues, that it was done well. And then you can let them know that they can get one of these through you at a discount, and they can monitor constantly to make sure the mitigation system is working after the fact. So referral club, you can get all our devices or make them available. You get a discount, and or your customer will get a discount, and you'll get a commission. We'll provide you with all the artwork you need to put it on your website. We'll help you set up. You'll get a landing page. We'll try to make it as easy for you as possible to be successful with it and to take care of your customers. So if you're interested in that, I want to make sure that you you go sign up for it, and we'll give you a call after. You'll get an email, and then we'll call you and make sure that you've got everything you need to set this up. Here's a picture of your dashboard. Keeps track of all your sales and your commissions and so forth. The other good thing about it is if you're I don't know if any of you are do both testing and mitigation. If you've got clients that aren't involved in a home sale, and they've got time to do a longer period test, then you can have them purchase an Eco Blue or an Eco Cube, and they can do a longer test, and then save you from going out, and they've got a monitor they can keep, and you make a little money off of it, but then you may get the referral. And what we're finding is a lot of people, after they see how radon fluctuates, they're looking at it, they're paying attention, and they go, well, I see that my average for the 30-day period that I've been watching this is a little less than 4, but I don't like these spikes that, they go up into the, the 10s or 12s. And, I just feel a whole lot better if it were mitigated. So you can get some work as a result of that, because once people can see it, it's a lot more real to them. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. We'll set you up. This is one of our, this was actually Merritt Gant down in his company is called Chew Air Technologies. This is an example from his website. We helped him set that up, and basically he just sends people say, hey, you need to go here and get one of these, and they get the discount, and he makes a commission. The other thing I will share with you, you can once you're a referral club member, you can certainly go in and take advantage of buying pro products as well, and you'll get your discount and make your commission back. So all right, so let me stop sharing here for a minute since we've got 7:43. Let me see if I've got some questions over here. So I've got a question from Alan, who said, so I may need to let Alan, I'm going to allow you to talk. So Alan, I'm inviting you to ask your question because I'm not quite clear. Said, did this guy set up a drain tile depressurization? So Alan, I turned you. Can you speak now? Is your mic on?
Alan, show muted.
There we go.
Yeah.
How you doing? Yeah.
Good.
I was questioning whether the system that the gentleman had spent 2 years working on included a drain tile depressurization, and was that what you were describing the difficulty with extracting radon through the water was related to? And what all else had he done?
What else has he done?
Yeah.
So he had a house that was a rectangle. Off the back, they put an addition on, just a square addition. This addition has drain tile,
Okay.
interior and exterior, with a sump basket like in this location.
Okay, got it.
And then their initial radon system suction point was in this corner, and the garage is over here. So went out the rim joist into the garage and up to the garage attic. So what he did with Josh was added a suction point on this side of the house, and there's a center footing splitting the house in half.
Yeah.
So he added a suction point here to try to pick up the rest of the house, but that center footing is blocking all his PFE on the front half of the house. And then what he ended up doing for this addition is there was no way to run a pipe to that drain tile. So he ended up stitching over and trenching through or over the footing and tying into that drain tile. However, all he's getting depressurization on is like this much of that drain tile, the sump basket, or sorry, if the addition is up here, he's only getting suction on this much of the drain tile, and he's missing all of this because of that water.
Okay, yeah. The reason I asked was because I've been having extremely good results with the drain tile depressurization systems that I've been doing, and they end up being much less expensive than the other styles of systems, as well as more effective. So I've had very good customer satisfaction with them.
Now, where are you located, Alan?
I'm in Colorado, Northwest Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah, over the years, one thing I have learned that not only do different things work better in different parts of the country than in other parts of the country, even in different parts of the country, they work better maybe in the eastern part of the state versus the southern part of the state or the western part of the state. So, but if you've got something that's working for you, that's good. If you're having good success with that, then that's great.
Yeah.
Did you have any other follow-up question on that, or?
No, I didn't. But thank you for sharing with us some of the details of that system, because I can't feature spending 2 years.
Well, it's only been a year, not 2 years.
Oh, okay.
One thing, Alan, that I would caution you about, though, is since I've had my sewer camera for a couple years now, there's so much compromised drain tile systems out there that you simply would have no idea why, unless you had something like a sewer camera. Like you should get PFE over here, but you're not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's clogged, maybe it's full of concrete, maybe it's crushed, maybe it's not even perforated. So if you run into some head scratchers, a sewer camera would be a great thing to look at. We've
Okay.
got a video that we just posted recently. Maybe it hasn't even posted yet. That's just all about the obstructions and stuff we find with drain tile
Can you
on our
share
YouTube channel.
share a link to the YouTube channel on that?
If you go to Google and put in Jesse Green radon videos, or go to YouTube and search for Jesse
Okay.
Green radon, you'll find a lot of them because Jesse makes great videos.
Okay,
Just-
great.
Just Google American Radon Mitigation
Okay.
YouTube, and you'll find it there. I think we posted it a few weeks ago, but I could be wrong on that. Maybe it's going to post in a couple weeks. I don't know.
Yeah. Is that the one you just sent us?
Nope.
Oh, okay. It's a different one. Okay.
I think it's a blue background, and then I'm holding a sewer camera. Is the thumbnail?
Okay. All right. Let's see. I have a question from Russell. And that is, when will the new Radon Eye report be released? We're working on that now. I hope that the report is ready before the end of May. It may be ready sooner. There really shouldn't be anything you have to do. It's just when you go ahead and it, create the PDF, it will just format it differently. So some of the feedback we got was, we were getting requested, can you make the radon result more prominent on that first page where it's real clear, where people don't have to look as closely to know, well, what's the recommendation and whatnot. So we did that. We also included some things in the recommendation about which are the standard recommendations that the our NCR standard says need to be on every report. For if there's not a mitigation system installed, then you should retest every 5 years. If there is a mitigation system installed every 2 years, that's always, that's been on our report for a while, but we upgraded the language in there and also included a mention for constant monitoring because we have such a great product with the EcoCube and the EcoBlue that there's testing every 2 years is fine, but if you can watch it all the time, our opinion is that's even better. So we put it there as a little extra information in those recommendations. Daniel says you posted the video. So it's there. I guess he's found it already. So they're way ahead of him. They got it. All right, let's see. So I got any more questions here? Now's your time. You don't want to spend time with Jesse and not take advantage of all the experiences that he's had. And even if you've got as much experience, it's a good time to share some things. So if anybody has anything that you'd like to share with the group, then by all means raise your hand and let me call on you. I like to kind of keep these happy hours informal because it's a good way for us to kind of learn from each other. Anybody have anything else they want to bring up? All right, well, I have 750, so let me share with you one more time. If you go to our website, ecosense.io, and you want to purchase a set of eco trackers, then if you go in and select, put it in your card and then enter the discount code Dallas ET, we'll get you $120 off that, and that's good until the end of the day on Sunday. Okay, here's one. Good, thanks, Steve. I think I understand the process of performing PFE measurements for a slab depressurization to ensure adequate suction over the entire slab, and then to use the suction and airflow data to determine the correct fan and adjust the minimal heat loss from excess suction. But how is this done for submembrane depressurization of a crawl space? In this case, he's referring to a house where the soil is clay. Great question. I don't know if you get houses like that where you are, Jesse.
Yep. Same process. It's just easier to get PFE because you can control what's going on under the slab. So we run soil gas mat or radonaways. What do they call it? Vapor mat.
Vapor
Into
mat.
like a radon tee and come up. Usually we're using a 2-inch pipe because we can seal it and we only need to move maybe 5 to 10 CFM to mitigate a whole crawl space. So, but for PFE, we're just, if our suction point's in the middle, or even on one end, we're trying to find that weakest spot, and that's where we put a test hole or two and just dial it down to get our target pressure field extension in that test hole, the weakest test hole.
Yeah, the principle's the same for sure. You know, sometimes when you're depressurizing a crawl space, you don't want to, you know, just suck the membrane down to the soil and then you lose your communication. So you need to, you know, either extend your, you know, some perforated pipe, you know, far enough underneath that you've got some airspace underneath there, and or using the matting that's become so available now. It's probably even a better approach because you can evenly distribute it, you know, with the matting.
The mat's nice too because it's flat. It's not a 4-inch perforated pipe you're then having to wrap your barrier over because every wrinkle in it makes it harder to seal.
Yeah.
So I find the flatter a crawl space is, the better, the easier it is for you, and you can make a better seal, which translates to less conditioned air getting thrown outside for the customer, a lower operating cost.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Jesse. Is that that as mitigators, you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to lower the radon concentrations. That's your main task, but at the same time, you want to make sure you're respectful of things like the energy cost. You know, whether you're able to minimize the loss of conditioned air, you know, from the house to, you know, down to the soil or below the membrane. You know, I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago who called me and they were dealing with a house that had that perimeter drain channel, you know, and trying to figure out how they had somebody had originally put a suction point on the sump pit, but it was just drawing a bunch of air from the basement down, you know, that channel drain all the way around, and so, you know, coming up with a solution for that works was just something that this particular mitigator had never dealt with before.
Yeah, one thing, if I can add to that too, Dallas,
sure.
Is it's easy as a mitigator to just throw on a big fan. I could throw on that RN4 EC and crank it up and, hey, we fulfilled our guarantee. I am not stuck with that $750 a year operating cost or that backdrafting water heater. But I just had a house last weekend or 2 weeks ago in Wisconsin that had that. It had a poured foundation, which is better than a block foundation for leakage anyways. But they had that perimeter drain open and a storage room on one end of the house and the rest was finished. And I explained the pros and cons of sealing that with the homeowner, and they were like, okay, we'll seal the storage room. And with one suction point, with that RN4 cranked up, I would have had to move a ton of air to reach the other side of the basement. I could figure out the operating cost on that, you know, by estimating the wattage of the fan and the conditioned air loss. And it was something crazy, like it would have been $750 a year to operate that system when we're factoring in conditioned air loss. So don't forget about that. With 2 suction points, it dropped it to like $500 a year. And with 3 suction points, it dropped it to $260 a year is what our final operating cost was. So I could explain that ROI and calculate it to the customer, like, hey, if you're going to be here your operating cost is 2 years on this and 5 years on this, or whatever your ROI rather, it makes it a pretty easy decision for that homeowner. Like, okay, I can spend more now, but I'm going to save, and I plan on being here for 20 years. So then it's just kind of a no-brainer. So don't forget to have that conversation with the homeowner too, and understand what the real operating cost is, not what the fan chart tells you. Hey, it's a 60-watt fan. It's 60 watts. Your operating cost is typically going to be a lot more than that, especially on a home with drain tile that it has open air leaks to the house.
That's great information. Thanks for adding that. Okay, I've got one more before you go. So Daniel has asked, says, I have a non-air conditioned attached storage room, slab on grade. It has full PFE, minus 44 pascals. I've sealed all the way around the room, but the floor still reads high around 8 picocuries per liter. Would you rip the walls out at this point? The radon is low, 4 feet and higher, so it appears the radon is staying low. So I tell you what, that sounds complicated enough. Daniel, I've asked you to turn your unmute yourself, and
Thank you.
maybe you can explain that a little better than typing it in. But did you kind of follow along, Jesse?
Yeah, it sounds like he's got the slab under control. And I guess my first question is there an adjacent slab, kind of like we ran into at the front step, or a sidewalk or a garage slab or something, where radon can be entering that way?
Yeah, so the storage room is on the adjacent slab to the main slab of the home. So the main part of the home is sub 1, but I can't really figure out where it's coming from in the storage room, because there's no penetrations that I can see.
Okay.
So my next thought was just like rip out the drywall and see if there's just holes in the walls or something. I didn't know what you would do.
Okay. And there's no, so if this is your storage room, is just a hole in the ground or whatever, are there any slabs outside of that, like a sidewalk or a garage slab, that is sitting up higher, trapping the radon where it's getting drawn into that storage room?
I don't think so. There's no adjacent slab that isn't the main slab. So it's, I have a front porch that's like a poured concrete slab porch that's an adjacent slab to the main slab, and there's also a rear slab, but the front, that storage room sits, as far as I can tell, sits on that front porch section of the slab, and it shares a wall with the main home, but yeah.
Are you getting data from your eco trackers?
Yes, that's how I knew that storage room was a problem, because the eco tracker, that's the only place in the house that's wonky.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm almost at the point where I'm like, when I put the eco tracker on the floor, and this is crazy, the detail of data I can get. When I put the eco tracker on the floor, it's like anywhere from 4 to 8. If I raise it up 2 feet, where my main concern is we have our freezer in there. So when it's at like breathing level or waist level or higher, it's at like 1 and 0.7 at the top of the freezer. So I'm like, all right, I'm probably splitting hairs here, but that's good data to have, because when I put the eco tracker on top of the freezer where I'm likely to be breathing, it's safe. So, but
Yeah.
it still feels weird to have it be like 7 or 8 on the floor. There's a way I could fix it. I sure would.
In that one spot. Interesting.
Dallas, could Thoron be throwing them off?
It could be. I mean, usually the Thoron has I mean, if you had it right on the dirt or something, possibly, but usually the Thoron's so short-lived, by the time it can get in there, it's pretty much gone. But I wouldn't rule it out. But I think your logic about, well, if it's 4. And the other thing is you're saying you put it on the floor in some other locations and you're not getting that, right?
Well, yeah, like if I put it on the floor near the door, it's like 1.1. If I put it in the back corner where it's the hottest, it's like, yeah, 6 to 8.
Interesting.
So here's my jerry-rigged solution. I drilled a whole bunch of holes in the floor. I'm sure I've introduced many other problems by doing that, but just to like a bunch of 1/4-inch holes to just try to get some depressurization. I don't know if that's a huge no-no, but it's the storage room, so I figured the hell.
I guess I didn't follow by drilling holes, trying to get more depressurization. You
Well,
testing
the
your PFE in those holes, or
Yeah, well, since I have great, sub slab suction, I just figured, can I get some of that suction into the room by just drilling through the floor?
and you have 44 pascals in that storage room, right? Of negative pressure.
Under the storage room, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe that was a no-no. Is that stupid?
Not stupid, but we get that question once in a while. Is like in the radon classes, is, hey, I want airflow, and it's like, no, you don't want airflow. You don't need. I mean, you're gonna have some airflow, but if I can see all these gaps and stuff, I have less airflow and I have more suction under the slab, and that's all we need to do is just overpower the natural suction that your house is creating on that slab with our radon system. So we don't need to move 100 CFM. We just got to suck harder on that soil than the house does. And if we can do that, move in 1 CFM, even better.
Yeah.
So introducing holes just would increase the airflow and decrease the suction. And
The other
that's
ones,
what
yes, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
gonna do.
Yeah, it's kind of offsetting some of the advantage you had in the other places.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna leave it alone.
You could have something odd, like I know Bill Broadhead had a house. Bill Broadhead's like the godfather of radon mitigation. Been doing it since the 80s, but I know he talked about a house where they had an old septic line that came into the house that was abandoned, and they were hooked up to city sewer and water now. And that septic never got capped. It was behind the paneling in the basement, and it took him a long time to find it. And then
Okay.
once he found it, he just shot some foam in there and sealed that up and took care of it. So it could be something like that. Maybe it's some conduit that comes in from outside,
Yeah.
that's behind a wall you can't see or something like that.
Yeah, Daniel, I would kind of go back to what you said before. If you're feeling good that your air concentration in there is quite low, then perhaps there's, you're worrying about nothing. I mean, it's interesting, but maybe it's not worth trying to chase.
I know what you're going through, Daniel. I'd want to figure it out just for peace of mind. Like, what is it? Where's this coming from? So let us know
Appreciate
if
it.
you
Thank you.
figure it out.
Yeah, you have to come and tell us if you figure out something. Let us know what you found.
Okay.
Hey Dallas.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to go through these, but Ksenia sent us over 11 questions that people had submitted.
Oh,
And
well,
said, please
please go
address these
ahead. If
during
you
the-
got it, then you're way ahead of me. Please, I was struggling with some things trying to get set up, and I didn't get them. So fire away.
Well, Daniel's is one of them, so we knocked
Okay.
that one out. So one says, which metric is most important, peak or average, when mitigation approach? Wait, let me start over. I get tongue tied. Which metric is most important, peak, average, and mitigation approaches for different exposure readings? This is from Tom Pungo, who's a homeowner. So for mitigation, I don't really care what the pre-mitigation level was, unless it's like, hey, the basement was 4 and the room above the crawl space was 10. Then I know, hey, I got to hit the crawl space. But other than that, the peak and the average, I guess if I had to pick one, the average matters more to me, but doesn't really change my approach to mitigation, at least not offhand that I can think of a time. Number 2 was best sealer for basement floor cracks. This is from Jesse Benson, who is also a homeowner. this is what we've been using for several years. If you're on, Jesse, it's Tight Bond brand, and it's called Radon Sealant. It's in an orange tube. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it from different radon distributors. Menards carries this cheaper than you get it from Amazon. I think it's like $6 a tube or something at Menards. It's in the paint department by the Culp. If you have a Menards in your area, I use that over polyurethane just for the VOCs, the off-gassing. Don't use Vulcum indoors.
Yeah, boy, there was a time when that was all there was.
Yeah, Josh Kerber talks about he missed like 10 days of work from using it in his basement. It took a long time to air it out.
Yeah.
Number 3 was, how do you handle the lowball competition without naming them, from Don Walker with Utah Radon Defense? So I guess when I'm talking about competition, like some people ask, hey, you're substantially more, what's different from your quote and this other guy's quote? And I have tried not to bash on people, even more so now, just because I think it's a bad look. So I just kind of talk about, hey, this is what their approach typically is. It might be poke and hope approach. Hey, it's going to be this fan. It might be this suction, suction point over here, and the system going out the side of the house. Hey, that might get you where you're looking to get to. It might not. Here's where we're different, and just be honest with them. Sometimes we're not the best solution for them. If they're moving out in a couple of years, they're not going to see that return on investment if they go with us, and we're 3 or 4 times the price of our competitors, and we'll tell them that. So I would just encourage you not to bash on them and just set yourself apart. Offer something that they're not. Number 5 is, how do you operate your radon testing equipment, from George Leone with Comprehensive Home Inspection Service? I don't know how to answer that. I don't do any professional radon testing anymore. We sub it all out just because I hate driving around and testing and doing paperwork, and scheduling it stresses me out. So we primarily just use the eco trackers for radon testing now, and we leave our customers air check test kits for post mitigation tests. Aside from me doing tests for YouTube videos and stuff, I don't really use anything else aside from EcoTrack or EcoCube. Some of our customers use that. Number 6 was, what is the best way to make a single combined report if you are using more than one radon eye per continuous monitor? And that's from, I think it's Isla.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Tomo.
That's something we're working on, because right now you'd have to combine the PDFs, using your Adobe, and we could put, if you put the same location, we can end up with a result on the report, but to have all the data from both tests done at the same location together in one report, right now you'd have to combine the PDFs. That's a conversation we're in the midst of right now, working with the developers on how you can just combine a PDF to it. So for example, right now you can add photos into the report, and we want to, I think what they're working on right now is where you can, just as easily as you can import a photo, you can import a PDF. So and one of the reasons that we're doing that is not just to put another report in with that report, but also, for example, your non-interference agreement. If you get that signed and you want that to be part of your report, you could add it in the same way you would a photo of, where you place the monitor and that sort of thing. Or in Illinois, the sketch or something, which most of the time the programs that people are using for that, could be a photo file of some sort, but we want to make sure you can do PDFs also. So we're working on that right now.
Dallas, I think our 7th question is for you. It's from Jeffrey Ramsey with Green Home Solutions and says recommendations to clients. Guessing he's talking about a report.
Recommendations to clients. We've got most of the appropriate recommendations are just part of the report. But I probably, who's it from?
Jeffrey Ramsey with Green Home Solutions, but
Okay,
it's very
I'll
short. It's
follow
just
up with-
recommendations to clients.
Yeah, I'll follow up with him. I don't see he's still on the call, so I'll follow up with him and let him know where I can be more clear exactly what he's asking for.
Okay, we've got 3 more.
Okay.
Where does radon come from and how is it caused? From Mike St. Wow, I'm bad at words. With placement per se, per eyes,
Well,
however you say that.
yeah, radon comes from the decay of uranium, which decays into radium, which produces radon. And there's some radium in uranium, but certainly there's some radium in most soils and rocks. Some places more than others, but if you think about it, the amount of radium in the soil and rocks is not as important sometimes as how easily the radon that's being emanated from that radon in the soil can travel into the home. So as the decay goes from radium into radon, it turns into a gas, and the gas then can, because it's fluid, can move through the soil and find its way into the home. And what's causing it to come into the home are the pressure differences between the inside air and the soil below and around the foundation. So when we say most houses really suck, it's because there's usually a lower pressure indoors than there is in that soil air. So houses literally just draw that radon in. So it's that's where it comes from.
And naturally occurring, and what's the half-life of uranium? 4.5 billion
4.5
years.
billion years. So there's
it's
a constant.
Gonna be around a while.
Yeah, and the radium that comes next is 1620 years. So it's like the ever ready battery bunny or whatever. It never quits producing. It's just going to keep producing more radon. So you can't get rid of the radon because there's the parent is there just making more all the time. So you just have to prevent it from coming in, and that's what Jesse does so well.
Thank you, Dallas. 2 more questions. Well, the first one is difference between hot sniff mode and continuous mode. Is it just the recording frequency, or also the display / app reading? This is from Charlie Guttridge with Premier Radon Services. Hey, Charlie. So in the eco trackers, difference between hot sniff, there's a 5 and a 10 minute, and then the continuous mode.
Yeah, well, the difference is that it's just collecting the counts and converting it to a concentration in a shorter time interval. So yeah, obviously you're going to have a more accurate reading if you could count, radioactive events that the sensor can pick up and collect and record over an hour than you would over 10 minutes or 5 minutes. But the sensor is good enough that it gets enough counts in 5 minutes or 10 minutes that you can get good relative data to help you determine what's going from one place to the next, what's happening from one spot to the next. So it's a diagnostic tool. You certainly wouldn't want to use it to say, oh, this home needs to be mitigated. But it can certainly help you determine, well, this spot here is relatively, significantly higher than the one over there. And so I do hear sometimes that there are testers who will place them around during a home inspection, and if they're there for 3 hours, but if they haven't convinced the homeowner to do a full 2-day test, you know, by the time they're able to see the data during that couple hours, well, then I guess you're not going to convince them. But you certainly wouldn't want to tell them they need to, you know, to take some action just over that short period. But from a diagnostic perspective, when you're mitigating, that's really helpful info.
And I think to follow up on that, and I've asked this too, but I don't remember what you guys told me because it was a year or two ago, but the 5-minute hot sniff, is that a new, does it every 5 minutes, is it an updated average of the last 5 minutes? Or the same with the 10-minute? I
Yes.
think the hour is like a rolling 1 hour average.
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
a roll. It's actually 1 hour, then the next hour, then the next hour. Yes.
But it updates like every 10 minutes or something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so it's a 5-minute one. Is that a totally new reading every 5 minutes, or is it a rolling 5-minute average?
That's a great question. I should ask that. I don't know, but I will find
Okay.
out.
And then our last question.
I was under the impression that, as I think about it, I think it's actually just the one reading versus the next versus the next, rather than
Not
rolling
long.
together.
They're on the last question they're going to answer.
Okay.
Okay,
Cheers.
last one.
All right. So last one is state licensing. Will you get 8 hour, will your 8-hour class get you licensed, or just satisfy renewal requirements? This is from Lisa Asher with BPG Inspections.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we're offering a couple of continuing education courses, which we have a 4-hour review of the NCR's radon measurement standards. And then we have a 4-hour review of the NCR's soil gas mitigation standards. And those are for people who are already certified who need continuing education. And for NRPP, if you were certified before May 2021, then you took an older exam. So ANSI wants you, if you fall into that category, to take an update course on the standards before your renewal, to make sure you're clear the standards that we're working with now. So those classes are not initial radon measurement training, but for those of you who may have employees or colleagues who want to get that initial training, I'm working on one right now. So I hope to have that done here in the next six weeks or so. All right. So yeah, we had a good session tonight. So we're at 8:20. I really appreciate those of you who hung on with us. And Jesse, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate all of your expertise and willingness to work with us, and we really appreciate you. So thanks to all of you for joining us. I appreciate all of you as well. I know you have lots of things you could be doing tonight. So if you haven't had your glass of wine for the evening, then now's the time. All right, good night.
Thanks, guys.
Night.
Thanks, Dallas.
All right.